Good morning and welcome to Cover 2 Cook. It is finally the October 12th college football Saturday. Before the season started, that was the Saturday that everyone said, watch out for. It's going to be an action-packed day. Still pretty action-packed, but some teams have disappointed this year, so it isn't as good as it was when we first saw the schedule. We're going to talk about Thursday night football. We're going to talk about those must-watch games for the college football. We're going to give our bets, and then we're going to wrap up with who we think for the Heisman so far, since it's almost halfway through the season, to give in all that. But before I get too far, let me bring in my co-host, Mr. Tim Cook. How you doing today?
I am doing good. Wanting to see how this October 12th D-Day kind of day is going to go and see what's going to happen,
Totally agree. There's a lot of big matchups, and it's, we had Alabama and Georgia, so we had an SEC showdown. This week we got a Big Ten showdown with number 2 and number 3. But before we get into college football, let's talk the NFL. We are recording this on Friday night. So last night we had the Thursday night football. We had the Seahawks versus the 49ers. And, I'm done with this whole Brock Purdy isn't good because he looks pretty good yesterday. What did you think about that game?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Seattle's defense did not look very good. It seemed like they didn't, in the first half, did come ready to play. I mean, I think San Francisco kind of shot themselves in the foot. That first drive they went down and they kicked the field goal. Seattle couldn't get nothing going, it seemed like, in the first half. They've just kept, like, overthrowing, or I see DK miss a couple passes. It's just like they couldn't get anything going. And, this game could have been a blowout early. If there were a couple field goals, in the first half, this could have been a 28-3 right off the bat in the first half. I mean, this game could have been over by the first half. And then it seemed like Seattle kind of got their feet wet, and they started in that second half, started playing a lot better, but that defense, I mean, they gave up 29 points to the Giants last week, and then they give up another 28 this week. So, I mean, that defense is just getting lit up. And this McDonald, he was the DC for Baltimore. You would think he would come in and bring his old schemes and everything. But these last two games, they have gotten lit up. And I think Geno Smith has come back to reality on the offense. I mean, he's just not – it just seems like they get out to slow starts, and they can't – they need to get out early and then do what they want to do.
Yeah, it's crazy because, 3 weeks ago we were like, he might be the first coach, or, he puts himself in a short line of going 4-0 with this first year, and they lose 3 in a row. I mean, this is a tough look now.
2 at home.
Yeah, and they have played a lot of games. I don't remember the stat was like 3 games in 11 days or something like that, because they played on Monday night, a Sunday, and a Thursday, like back-to-back. So there's been a lot of games in a little short time, but I feel like when they started this game, they were trying to use Kenneth Walker way too much. I mean, I have him on fantasy, so it was like, oh, I love it, but they just couldn't get the running attack going. And when you're not getting the running attack going, then he really doesn't open up the passing either, because then they know, okay, third down, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to throw the ball. I do think Geno is coming back to reality. I totally agree with that. I think Geno is a good quarterback. I just don't think he's a great quarterback. And I think that's where the situation where when they were going 3-0, everyone's like, oh, and even last year, they were like, they put him on this pedestal, and then it's like, okay, he comes back down. Being a quarterback in the NFL is hard. And the ones that make it look easy are really, really good. And that's the unfortunate problem with Geno is he's not that good. He's good, but he's not that good. Yeah, I think the San Francisco, we started seeing some of these weapons between Ayuk and George Kittle. I know Mason goes out, but then the next guy steps up. And
that's something. And that's something they're down to the third straight quarterback or running back, and like they didn't miss a beat.
Well, and if you look at the stats on this game, yes, George Kittle had 5 catches, but it's either 3, 2. I mean, not one wide receiver had tons of catches while the rest of them didn't. And I think that's where it was just spread out. And I think that's why I say Brock Purdy. I'm tired of this. Brock Purdy will never, ever get the credit that he deserves because he's under this system with these weapons. And it's like, okay, but he's still a good quarterback. He makes the right decisions majority of the time. Now, do I think there's games where, he struggles? Yes, but 18 for 28, 255 yards and 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 0 sacks. That's hard. I mean, that stat line right there is going to win you a lot of games.
And I think Shanahan, that's all he expects out of him. That's all Shanahan expects out of Purdy is just don't lose me the game. Just maintain. And I got the system in place. Just maintain it, buddy. Just maintain.
Well, and you were saying that Seattle came out struggling. I definitely agree. I think they came out slow. It was a typical Thursday night football game where it was kind of slow in the beginning. And I mean, outside of last week's when it was a high flying, but like it was slow. But I really, if you think about it, you were saying they should have been done in the first half. If they don't return that kick for a touchdown, this game is over. I mean,
Yeah.
that changed the momentum. It got the crowd back into it. They got a 3-and-out the next series. It was like, okay, here they come. The problem though is right when they have a momentum or a chance to, get back in it, Geno throws an interception, they go down and score a touchdown. Now they're up. And it was one of these situations where it was like, you just waited too long to turn the lights on. You got to turn the lights on when the game starts. And yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. Another unfortunate about this situation is San Francisco cannot stay out of their way with the injury train. Mason goes down with a hurt shoulder. He tried to get back in the game, came back out. But like we said, the third string comes in, rushes for almost 100 yards. It's like it's just hard. I mean, you could only imagine what Christian McCaffrey would do with this, and we've talked about him whether he's going to come back or not. But do they really? I mean, they would love to have him, but do they really need him?
Yeah, and they got a great defense. I mean, you got Fred Warner, the Bosa kid. I mean, they just keep trucking right along. I mean, they just, they one week they look really like hot garbage, and the next week they play a Thursday night and that defense is flying around.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway from this game is if this 49ers team plays like they just did on Thursday night, then they're a good team. But the problem is we haven't seen that very often, and they're losing games at the end, like last week with Arizona. Can't lose those games. We'll see if they can keep it up going forward. But that was our Thursday night football. There is Friday night college football, but obviously we're recording it before those games. I still want to say keep an eye out for Arizona State today. When you're listening to this, I think you're going to find out there's going to be an upset against Utah. Keep an eye out for that one. But we got to go to our must-watch games. Man. Let's start off with the first one at 2:30. Number 1, Texas versus number 18, Oklahoma, the Red River Showdown. Quinn Ewers is back. What do you think about this
rivalry?
It is. What do you think about this game?
They changed the name. They used to call this the Red River Shootout, but now we cannot politically say that because now it's shooting and stuff. So now they call it the Red River Rivalry. I think they need to go back to that. Come on, man. Come on. Both teams are coming off a bye. Texas is in for the first. Texas coming in as the number 1 team, first time in 40 years, which is shocking to me. I'm surprised it's been 40 years. It looks like Ewers is going to play. He's going to start, so they'll have Arch Manning ready to go. This is the second time in 3 years that Ewers is coming back from an injury, and this first game is against Oklahoma. I was shocked on that stat. I'm like, really? But yeah, this is the second time in 3 years. Oklahoma is going to be missing their good right receiver, Deion Burks. So, here's going to be the keys. Can the O-line keep up with Colin Summer? Can OU's line keep Colin Summer in check for this game? And can OU's defense limit Texas, in the red zone, just like last year? Last year, they had to give up a lot of field goals in that game. So, this Texas team is really good, but it's a rivalry game and anything could happen.
Yeah, you're bringing up the first time that Texas is coming in as number 1 against Oklahoma. That game that was 40 years ago actually ended in a tie. So that was an interesting stat that I saw too, which now you don't have ties. So you play it till it goes. But yeah, I think with Oklahoma coming with the true freshman quarterback, it's at their house. If it was at Texas, this would be. I don't even think.
This is a neutral site game.
Oh yes, yeah. It's at the.
And we're in the Cotton Bowl.
Yep. Yeah, because they have like a fair for this.
Yes. The Texas State Fair is going on at the same time.
Yeah, I was watching that, and it's very cool how they have it. It's very harsh. I have heard that if you're an opposing team in the wrong area, you're going to hear it and stuff like that. So they take a lot of pride in it. This is where, like, when we talk about Oklahoma and Texas, and you're like, why are they in the SEC? They are some of the only programs that I could say they have that same fan base like the SEC does, or the actual South
Right.
Conference. So with this fan base, but yeah, I just think they both have good defenses. I mean, I don't know how much Oklahoma is going to be able to protect that quarterback. How much is that true freshman going to come in and play with a head on his shoulders without trying to do too much? Because it is a big game. I mean, can you take down the number one team? I think Texas is just. I think they're by far the best team in college football this year. I just don't think there's a team that can actually play with them. We'll see there's a game later on with Ohio State and Oregon. We'll see what those two teams do, because seeing how Alabama played last week and how Georgia's played a couple times this year, who else? Who else is going to run with this Texas team? I just don't see Oklahoma giving them a fight. I would love for it. I would love for a close game. I don't.
Yeah.
I think tough by.
Yeah, I think their defense is I think that's going to be the kicker. Can Oklahoma's defense keep up with Texas? I mean, they've got some great athletes. It's going to be hard.
Well, and I was actually thinking more of like, can Oklahoma keep up with their offense? I mean, can they score as many points? And I just,
Right.
I
don't think so.
Oklahoma's defense is good. Don't get me wrong, and they might make a couple plays that are going to change momentum a little bit. But because Texas's offense is just nonstop, I mean, I think people kind of forget already about what they did to Michigan. And Michigan has an okay defense. Oklahoma has probably a better defense than Michigan, but I don't think you can keep up. I mean, if you go down Oklahoma and then you have a true freshman quarterback there, you're going to ask him not to make mistakes throughout the game, and good luck with that. But it is a must watch. It's going to be a great game. It's at 2:30 on ABC ESPN Plus. But it takes us into our game number 2. I actually believe this is the game of the week. Number 2 Ohio State versus number 3 Oregon. Ohio State leads the nation in total defense, while Oregon has a pretty dominant offense. What do you think about this game?
I like this game. College game day is going to be there, so that should be get everybody excited. This is the first time Ohio State will be in Eugene in 60 years. 60 years. The last time they played each other in Columbus, Oregon came out with a victory, 35-28. So there's going to be a little bit of revenge with Ohio State. I think this game. I think this is the game of the night. I really do. I would put it right up there with the Alabama Georgia. I think this is going to be great. 2 high power offenses. Ohio State's led by Will Howard and wide receivers Ibuke and Smith. Ohio State's defense has only given up 7 points last week to Iowa. And that was right off the bat. On the other side of the ball, you have Oregon led by the Dylan Gabriel that's been around for about 10 years. It seems like he's bounced around from school to school, and this team is going to have to play better. They've not really hardly played anybody too. So their defenses with Jordan Burch that could give Howard and all he can handle. The X factor nobody has been talking about. Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly coached there from 09 to 2012. So he kind of knows the environment. He'll know, what the atmosphere is going to be like. I think he is going to be a big X factor. So I like this game. I think this could be, this is probably going to be one of my best bets as well for this game.
I totally agree. I think this Ohio State started pretty slow against Iowa last week, and everyone was kind of like, uh-oh, is Ohio State even that good? Obviously, they put it on in the second half, and it was like, oh, yes, this is Ohio State we know. The other thing with this game is Oregon. Oregon's been having way too many turnovers in the red zone area or on their side of the field. That can't happen. If it happens against Ohio State team, Ohio State's going to put points up. They don't play around. Now, with that type of defense, you guys can't make mistakes. You just can't. This is a type of game where a mistake could cost you the game. And I definitely agree. This is the Big Ten's showdown, right? Michigan's not the team that was last year. And this is your Ohio State, Oregon. This is your Georgia, Alabama. These are two teams that are saying, we want to be the most dominant team in our conference. I think Ohio State coming into Oregon is definitely an X factor because of how Eugene is, where it's just kind of out of nowhere. And it takes a travel to get in there. I've seen a lot of people report about that it kind of puts a wear. We're also talking about a kickoff time that's later with Ohio State coming from the Midwest to the West Coast. But I just think this is the start of a new rival. This is we have the Ohio State Michigan that'll always be there. It'll always be a game that everyone's got to watch. But with looking at the Big Ten, unless USC steps up or another team comes out of nowhere, this is your third team. This is your Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon. Oregon's always going to have it. They have the financial backing of Nike. They're always the
Phil
cool.
Knight.
Well, they have one of the coolest schools with the color schemes, and they always have the nicest jerseys, and they're going to get recruits. And the campus is absolutely gorgeous. So I think this is a new rival. Ohio State will always be there too, but I definitely agree. I think Ohio State's quarterback has to stay untouched. You can't let this defensive line get to him, and that Jordan Burch is coming off of Defensive Player of the Week. So I think this is definitely the game of the night for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I was wondering when they played in 2021, didn't Oregon plant a flag in the O at Ohio State? I was thinking they ran around with the flag when they played them in 2021. When they beat them at Columbus. I was thinking that they did, but I'm not. I mean, don't quote me on it, but I thought they either they ran around the field or they planned to. Maybe I'm thinking of another game. So
yeah, I think you're thinking of Baker Mayfield.
Oh, okay, maybe that's what it was.
Yeah,
Yes,
Baker Mayfield planted the flag on the Ohio State, but I mean, this is what I'm saying. This is going to be depending on how this game ends, this is going to be the rival. This is going to be a game.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Oregon's not going away.
Well, and we might see this game later in the year with the Big Ten because who else is going to compete in the Big Ten with this? Penn State, maybe, if they can keep it up. I'm still not a believer in Penn State yet. We'll see. I mean, but still, I think you got Penn State in there. But this team, I think, unfortunately, even if Texas wins, whoever wins this game is going to bump themselves up to number one. So expect whoever wins this game to go to number one next week. But that takes us into another night game, a great game. Ole Miss versus LSU. Jackson Dart versus Garrett Nussmeier for LSU. Great game. What do you think about this one?
I like this one. Down in the Bayou, a night game. God, this is going to be good. The keys to the game, I think the LSU O-line's got to keep Ole Miss's D-line in check, and then Ole Miss's D-line's got to is coming to the game. Number one nationally, which I was shocked on this stat, an Ole Miss defense has 63 tackles for loss and 24 sacks. You just wouldn't think of that at Ole Miss. You're thinking of Lane Kiffin, you're thinking of offense, but they're nationally one of the better defenses around. So I was kind of shocked on that one. LSU will want to run the ball with Caden Durham, and throw the ball with Nussmeier. Ole Miss is going to keep up going what they're doing with Jackson Dart. They're going to want to spread the field out, and get the ball down the field. That another thing too is the defense of LSU is the worst in SEC. They've given up 236 yards. This place is going to be loud at Tiger Stadium. Oh, is it going to be loud? And a night game? Holy cow. So yeah, I can almost smell an upset Saturday night.
I heard an interesting story today. Nick Saban was on Pat McAfee, and he coached down in LSU, and he came in when they were not as great as as recognized as they are now. And when he came in, they used to have 2:30 games, or the 2:30 game would be the most important SEC game because it would be on CBS.
Right.
And they would get mad because they started winning and they'd get put at 2:30, and the fans would be like, no, we need night games here. And Nick Saban would be like, why do you guys need night games? And he's like, because we need to get liquored up during the day so we can get ready for the game.
Right.
It's exactly what LSU is. And when Nick Saban said Vanderbilt is the easiest place to play at, he said the hardest place to play at is LSU on a night game. He's like, rowdy. It is a long game. So I definitely think with this, Jackson Dart's a dog. I like him. I think he's a possible, and we're going to talk about Heisman's down the line, but I think he's in the consideration for a Heisman, but this is where you make your mark right here. Yeah. This is the type of game where you go perfect without interceptions. Do not allow this defense. Do not let this crowd get into it, and just win this game. Rightfully. I just think with the last time they played, LSU lost Ole Miss last year, 55-49. Wow. Ole Miss had 700 total yards of offense. Can
Mm.
Ole Miss kind of have that kind of game? And when you're saying that they have the worst defense in the SEC, I kind of see that. But there's a lot of injuries coming into this game as well. Ole Miss may be without Trey Harrison, which leads the nation in receiving. That's a huge loss if he doesn't play in this game. And then LSU has 2 receivers and a running back that are questionable as well. I just kind of wish these guys were healthy because then it would kind of give the shine to it. I think they're from what they're saying that all these players will play. They just might not be as dominant or as elusive as they should be.
Right. And also, too, another interesting stat is that LSU's 12-0 on Saturday night under Brian Kelly. And his record, I think, night games overall is like 105-17. I mean, that's tough. I mean, he gets this team prepared wherever he's been to, Notre Dame, LSU. When it comes to Saturday night games, it's primetime games. When it hits the lights, he gets his team's ready to play.
Yeah, shit. That stat doesn't make me. That one's hard to kind of believe after him being at Notre Dame because
I know, but you know what? They always, Anthony. We're Notre Dame fans. It seemed like on Saturday nights he would, especially at home, he'd have them ready to go.
Yeah,
key games.
It always just felt like the primetime games, the Saturday night ones. We would always find a way to lose it. So I mean,
right.
The home ones I definitely agree. But like when we played, Georgia and when
right.
we played Clemson.
Right.
It just felt like we won one of the Clemsons, but then we got our butts smoked in that COVID year of the SEC or the ACC championship. But yeah, I think this game, with it being a night game, I mean, I hope you have multiple TVs. I hope you're good with the clicker. You're going to want to be clipping back and forth on these 2 games, the Ohio State and Oregon and Ole Miss and LSU. The Texas and Oklahoma kind of dominates the 2:30 session. Unless you're going to watch Penn State or USC, you may want to watch Stanford or Notre Dame. But let me go through the rest of the games for the day that are also maybe not must watch, but you might want to keep an eye on. Alabama versus South Carolina at 11 o'clock. Alabama's coming off that loss to Vanderbilt. Can they rebound? I mean, that team at the end of it looked very undisciplined and just did not look good. So we'll see how they go against Clemson, against South Carolina. Also at 11 o'clock, you have the Clemson versus Wake Forest. I don't know how much of a fight Wake Forest is going to be able to give in this game. Missouri, after their horrible loss to Texas A&M, is going against UMass. Hopefully they can rebound since UMass is 1-5. At 2:30, you have the Penn State versus USC as well. So another Big Ten. Interesting stat that I saw is that USC is having the Big Ten, since they've been playing the Big Ten, a lot of rushing yards against. And we said that when they came into the Big Ten. Also at 2:30 on NBC, you're going to have Stanford versus Notre Dame. As Notre Dame fans, this game makes me nervous. It's after a bye with Notre Dame. They always play sluggish. Stanford, I don't know why Stanford always feels like they have our number for some reason. Cal versus Pittsburgh, number 22 Pitt. So be on the lookout for that one. Number 23 Illinois versus Purdue. You have number 14 BYU going against Arizona at 3 p.m. Georgia's playing Mississippi State. Should not be that close of a game. Tennessee's taking on Florida. Can they bounce back after their awful loss? Iowa State is also playing at 7 p.m. against West Virginia. It's the Cole game or Cole something. And they got the blacked out jerseys for West Virginia. Another must-watch game kind of later in the night, 9:15, Kansas State versus Colorado. Both 4-1, starting against their big Colorado's 2-0 in the Big 12, and Kansas State's 1-1. So can Deion get a nice little win there? And then the 10 p.m. game, Boise State versus Hawaii. It's on CBS Sport Network. If you have a chance to watch this game, watch the running back. We're going to talk about him when we get into the Heisman talk. But before we get to, is there any game you want to talk about out of those?
No, I mean, one of them games that was supposed to be one of the key marquee games was Penn State and USC. And boy, has USC fallen mightily. They were right up there, even after they got beat by Michigan. And they just seem like they've tumbled, So that's, I do like the Illinois Purdue. They're going to play for the Cannon, which I've never heard of before. So that should be an interesting game. Illinois is coming off a bye, so that should be interesting too.
Yeah, you look at it and like when we first saw the schedule, Penn State and USC was definitely up there, and then you definitely had like Florida and Tennessee was supposed to be a great game. Obviously, Florida's not playing the way. Kansas State and Colorado, I still think it's a great game, but these teams are supposed to be ranked. But let's get into our bets. Give me your first bet for this weekend for college.
Washington versus Iowa. Washington's coming off a big win last week against Michigan, 27-14-0, against an Iowa team that, held their own for the first half against Ohio State. They scored 7 points, but they ended up losing 35-7. Washington will be led again by Rogers and Hill. Iowa's going to be led by Kate McNamara, ex-Michigan, and running backs Caleb Johnson. 8 of Washington's last 9 games, non-AP teams have gone under the total. And 7 of Iowa's last 8 in October has been under the total. So you see where I'm heading towards. Give me the under 41.5 for this game.
Under 41.5. I like it. I with Iowa's offense and I thought maybe they were going to have a different year, but seems like the old Iowa team.
Yeah.
First bet, I'm taking the Arizona versus BYU. I don't know what is happening where people are just not putting respect on BYU's team on their name. BYU's only favored at 4.5 for this game against Arizona. Now, Arizona did give it a good fight early in the year, but they've had some losses this year that they probably should have lost, but they have. At BYU at a 3:00 game, I like BYU on this one, 4.5. I think they take this one pretty easily. The BYU team, after taking that early win or the upsetting win, has really just taken off like a rocket. So I really like them. I'm going to give them a respect and give them the 4.5 on this game. What do you got for your second bet?
My second bet, Virginia versus Louisville. Louisville's coming off a home loss, 34-27 to SMU. After being down 24-13.5, they tied the game at 27, only to let it slip away at the end. Virginia, surprise team in the ACC this year, is 4-1 this year after defeating BC 24-14 after trailing 14-0 early in the game. So that was a heck of a comeback. Virginia, kind of the surprise team of the year in the ACC. Louisville is coming to this game trying to snap a 2-game losing streak, but their defense needs to step up. Virginia is coming into this game on a 2-game winning streak. So both teams kind of going in opposite directions right now. The road team has covered the spread in each of the last 3 games against each other. So make it 4, and I'll take Virginia getting the 7.5.
Virginia giving this.
Getting the 7.5.
Getting 7.5.
Yes.
And then for my second bet, I have Penn State versus USC. I think I just brought up that stat. The USC is just not done well against the Big Ten and that hard-nosed running, big boys. The West just needs, if they're gonna, Oregon and USC, and if they're gonna play in this Big Ten, they're gonna have to start recruiting in the Midwest. They're gonna have to get some of these bigger boys for the offensive line, the defensive line, even your wide receivers are thicker. I like Penn State in this one. It makes me so nervous betting Penn State though, because I always feel like they take a shit when you bet on them. And then when you bet against them, they just come out and play the best game of the year. But I just don't think this USC team knows how to combat the Big Ten yet. So I like Penn State on this one, 5.5. It's a little bit more than I would like, but I like Penn State on this one, 5.5. What do you got for your third bet?
Third bet is the game of the night. Ohio State, Oregon. I think this is going to be a barn burner. I think it's not going to be led by the defense, but I think it's going to be a slow start for both teams. But then I think they just unleash. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. Ohio State is like 1-4 on the road and going out west, and Oregon is 3-2 against the Big Ten. So. You know what? I like Oregon getting the 4.5. Quack.
Oregon. Honestly, I think the home field advantage on this one might help on it. I just don't know if they can stop this Ohio State team. I think this is the only team that I will put up there with this Texas until we see what this game's like. For my third bet, I'm taking the Colorado versus Kansas State. Now, you're asking me, why am I not betting any of this must watch? And I'm sorry, but I got to just sit and enjoy these games. So I can't sit there and freak out, get angry at the wrong thing. I want to enjoy these games. So I'm not betting on these must watch games because this is October 12th and it is that day. But for Kansas State and Colorado, end of the night, I think Deion gets these guys ready. I think Kansas State is hit or miss. We've kind of seen them recently just not play the way that they have the Avery Johnson at quarterback. Long hair, luscious hair, great hair. But I think Deion and them bring the Clippers out. They win this game. Now, Kansas State is giving 3.5. I'm going money line on Colorado. Now, if you want to be a little bit safer, take the points, get the 3.5. But I think Colorado wins this game at home. It's just too big of a game to lose. I think this is when Deion and Shedeur and all of them, Travis Hunter, I think they all show up for this game. They know it means the world for them. They're going to win this game.
Wow, I don't know. That Kansas State's pretty good. They're going to have to show me something. Colorado's going to have to show me something, man. It's just, I don't know. They're going to have to play better than they've been playing. I mean, it's got to be more than just Hunter and Sanders. So it should be good, but I don't know. I like Kansas State. I think they're going to rebound.
And you know what? I will say, though, for me, like, for this game, I think it's when they do rebound, and I just want to make money off of it. I just want to make money off of it. But that actually takes us into our last conversation before we get out of here is Heisman talk. We've talked about the running back over at the Gentry over at Boise State. You talked about Travis Hunter at Colorado. You got Jackson Dart at Ole Miss. You got Cam Ward in Miami. Who do you right now think is the Heisman winner if the year ended today?
I think I did the stats. Looked at the stats. If you went by stats, it's Cam Ward hands down. I mean, he's got 20 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 2,219 yards passing, and 161 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. So he's got a total overall of 23 touchdowns overall. So, I mean, if you went by stats, it's got to be Cam Ward. I think that Gentry or Genty, he's going to get some votes when it comes down to it. But I'm telling you what, I think it's Cam Ward. I think that comeback that they had against California was a big one. I mean, I like to see their schedule to see if they play anybody big, like a Clemson or another ACC team, and if he has to go on the road and pull one out. But I mean, I think it's Cam Ward.
So Miami actually has a pretty easy schedule for the rest of the year, and I think that's something where the stats could definitely help him. It's hard because I think when you talk about the Heisman, you're talking about the best player on their team and who makes a difference. It's the same thing we talk about in the NFL with MVP. Who's the most valuable player to their team, or who's the most valuable player in the whole league, right? And when you talk about that, I mean, it's so hard to say Travis Hunter ain't the best player or, he's the most valuable player to this team. He plays both sides of the ball. Yeah. He has how many receiving yards? He's got multiple interceptions. He's got a touchdown every game this year. And then you have this Genty, yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Genty, it's so hard to not say he has over 1,000 rushing yards. He almost has as many rushing yards as their quarterback has passing yards. Now, the interesting fact about him is he hasn't even played all the quarters. If you imagine him playing all those quarters and getting actually how many yards, the problem with this whole thing with the Heisman, though, is are they willing to give it to a non-quarterback? And I think when you said Cam Ward, it was like, I totally agree. It's going to be either Jalen Milroe going to come back up in the conversation. Jackson Dart gets a big game. He's got a lot more bigger games coming up, so we'll kind of see what potential he's got for this Heisman. But does Jalen Milroe come back up in the conversation? Cam Ward, can he put on some stats while they play this less competition before they get in the ACC tournament, or if they make it there, or the championship? I just think it's so hard at this time of the year, if the year ended now, to not give it to Travis Hunter or the Genty, because they're just more dominant so far this year. Cam Ward has great stats, but it's just I'm tired of giving it as a quarterback. Give it to the most valuable player in the NCAA right now.
Well, the bad deal for Genty is he's not in one of the Power Five conference or Power Four conferences. So the competition is not going to help him. And plus, he's not on TV very. I mean, with Cam Ward, he plays in the ACC. The other kid, he plays in the Mountain West. I mean, that's hard. I mean, that's where it's going to be his downfall, is that he's just not playing anybody. That's why he's coming out in the fourth quarter. He's only playing three quarters. I mean, his 16 rushing touchdowns. That's he's looking at possibly 30 to 35 rushing touchdowns this year if he can keep playing like that. Even Travis Hunter, 845 rushing yards, 13 rushing touchdowns. He's getting 10.3 yards per carry. That's a first down every time he touches the ball. That's crazy. That's crazy stats. I think Milroe will come back if the Vanderbilt one killed him. I think he was leading it, and he dropped down to like 4 or 5 in the betting public with that, losing that to Vanderbilt. That hurt him big time. Now he will be able to get a chance to rebound because he plays in an SEC conference that will build him back up if that team plays better. So I mean, that's the bad deal about if Jeanty was playing for Alabama or LSU or even Ohio State, he might be running away from it.
Yeah, I think, I guess so if Colorado wins tonight, they still put on a show. They get into the championship of because they're in the Big 12. If they get in the championship for the Big 12, do you think now you put Travis Hunter above all of them? I mean,
possible. I mean, possible. It's depending on who they're. I mean, depending on what. I think the primetime games, that's going to show you who's there and who's not.
Yeah,
Jenkins not going to get on any primetime games because he's in a weak conference, and that's going to hold him back. Not to say he's not a good athlete or a good player. It's just that he's not going to be on primetime TV, and he's not going to. They won't be able to showcase him.
Yeah, and I think if Boise State wins out and plays for the Mountain West, I think that's where you may put his name up there again. But I just think these stats alone are just. I mean, they're in a league of their own.
They're crazy. That Travis Hunter one, it's like every time he touches the ball, he gets a first down. Every time he touches the ball, it's a first down.
Yeah, and
that's think crazy. That's crazy.
I think that the
and for him to play both ways, that's even crazier.
Yeah, I just think, and then the interceptions too. I mean, he has
right.
Well, so it's not like he's even just playing out there. Like he's making plays on the defensive side as well. I don't know of another person coming out of. I don't think Dillon Gabriel has had enough of a year, or maybe, this weekend we kind of see a different Dillon Gabriel, but I don't think he's kind of shown, the dominance or to put him up there. I don't see anyone, Carson Beck from Georgia, putting up enough points or enough, big plays to get his name.
Stats. Yeah, he just doesn't have the stats. I just don't think he's got enough his wide receivers are just too green so far. He just can't. He got exposed against Alabama big time.
Yeah. And I think like the sad part too is the number one team, and I think the team that's going to win the championship this year, they got 2 quarterbacks. And I think if Quinn Ewers doesn't go out, which he was in the top 3 for Heisman before the injury, and then after the injury, now he's not even being talked about. I still think you got to put his name up there again because I think he is the most valuable player for his team, but also most valuable or Heisman as well. If they keep the dominant trait that they have throughout the rest of the year, I think his name gets back up there as well.
And doesn't Texas play Georgia in a couple of weeks, or Texas? I think it's Texas and Georgia in a couple of weeks in it. So that will definitely, if he's still playing, then that'll help him.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's at Georgia too.
Yes.
No. Sorry. It is at home.
Oh.
And Texas has got to play Vanderbilt at Vanderbilt. Can they do 2 upsets this year? Then they finish off the year at Texas A&M.
Right.
So we'll see how that all shakes out too. Yeah. They're number 15. I mean, Texas has got some games ahead of them after this Oklahoma, Georgia, Vanderbilt. They got Kentucky because Kentucky's been playing teams tight, and then you have Texas A&M as well. So
do they have Tennessee? I was thinking they had Tennessee too, but I could be wrong.
No, they don't have Tennessee this year. They play Florida, which I don't see that, in Arkansas. I don't see that being hard games for them.
Gotcha.
But But that gives us our Saturday, October 12th college football podcast. If you like what we're talking about, please like, share, comment, subscribe. We're on YouTube as well. If you do take some of our betting, please bet responsibly. We're just two goons talking betting. This is our money. This is our money that we're okay with losing. We're just giving you what we think from all the things that we've read for what we're betting. But we want to thank you guys. We'll be back on Sunday for NFL Sunday. There is a London game as well. The Bears are playing in London with the Jaguars. So we will be recording during that game. So we won't talk much about that game on Sunday. Outside of the Bears, the Jaguars aren't much to talk about. But we want to thank everyone for listening. I hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see you on Sunday.